Rancangan untuk pelaksanaan semula pengajaran pembelajaran sains dan matematik dalam bahasa Inggeris PPSMI masih di peringkat awal. Timbalan Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Azizah Wan Ismail berkata, langkah untuk melaksanakan penggunaan bahasa Inggeris yang diumum Perdana Menteri Dr. Mahathir Mohamad baru-baru ini juga belum lagi dimuktamadkan.
Actually, we discussed preliminary, and so I think the decision has not been final. Thank you.
Beliau berkata demikian ketika diminta mengulas mengenai pengumuman dibuat Perdana Menteri Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad bahawa bahasa Inggeris akan digunakan semula untuk pengajaran dan pembelajaran sains dan matematik di sekolah bagi menggalakkan penggunaan bahasa antarabangsa itu.
Assalamualaikum. My team and I will be presenting on the streaming and the reintroductions of PPSMI. PPSMI is something that is very close to heart to us because most of us are one of those who first experienced the implementations of PPSMI during Standard 1 in 2003. PPSMI refers to pengajaran dan pembelajaran sains dan matematik dalam bahasa Inggeris. Or in English, we call it as teaching and learning of mathematics and sign English. PPSMI is the brainchild of the former Prime Ministers of Malaysia, Tun Mahathir Mohamad. The policy of PPSMI was launched by the Ministries of Education in 2003. PPSMI involved the changes of medium of instruction for science and mathematics subjects specifically from Bahasa Melayu to English in primary and secondary levels of education. It was effective in 2003 with pupils of Year 1 in primary school, which is us back then, and Form 1 and lower 6 students in secondary school as the pioneer cohort. So it was fully implemented in 2007 for secondary schools and 2008 for primary schools all over Malaysia. About 5 billion budget is allocated for the implementations of PPSMI over the course of 2002 to 2008. The back then Ministers of Education, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, announced a soft landing approach when introducing PPSMI. Soft landing approach means that they stated that Malay language as language of instruction will be used in teaching mathematics and science by 2016 at primary school level and 2021 at secondary school level, which means that the implementations of PPSMI is basically a trial period to introduce students to English in their instruction. What is the basis behind the introductions of PPSMI? So, the implementations of the policy was grounded on the awareness that English is an important lingua franca in trade industry and in the transfers of scientific knowledge and technology. According to Prime Minister opinion, Tun Mahathir Mohamad, he stated that in order for Malaysia to advance in trade industry and excel in transfers of scientific knowledge, as well as expanding in technology at global level, we must be proficient in English. However, the commands of English among young Malaysians has deteriorated, so PPSMI is proposed to confront this issue. This can be seen from one of the prominent car company in Japan, which is Honda. After years of operation across the world, they have resorted to use English as its corporate lingua franca. This proves that in order to compete at international level, we must integrate to it. So, during the propositions of PPSMI, there were some backlashes received due to the fact that it violates Article 152 of the Federal Constitution, which stipulates that Malay as the national language of Malaysia. And the Education Act of 1996, which declares Malay as the main instructional mediums of schools. So basically, the resistance received is due to the fact that implementations of PPSMI violates these two articles. PPSMI also received resistance from Venezuela school as they voiced their fear of the risk on their native language due to the introductions of PPSMI. They afraid that by using English to teach science and mathematics, it will risk their mother tongue, which is Bahasa Tamil and Mandarin. The implementations of PPSMI also received backlashes from the expert because the implementations of PPSMI is through a top-down policy. Basically, they are received instructions from the ministry and it must be implemented by teachers at school. However, the implementations of PPSMI is done without consultations from the expert. Consultation in this case refers to the Ministries of Education officers and teachers who implemented the practice. Even though the policy was announced quite hastily, the government still provided training for mathematics and science teachers who involved. So from now on, I will refer mathematics and science teacher as MST. So, MST are prepared for 7 months right after the policy was first announced. So they are training made to prepare the teachers to teach science and mathematics in English. However, the training is not for subject content but to develop linguistic skills. So the teacher, those who join the training, they are not trained on how to teach science and math, but instead they are trained on how to use English to teach science and mathematics. About 50,000 MST have gone through curriculum induction training. They were provided with curriculum materials such as textbook, teacher's guide and other auxiliary materials to help them. They were also given laptop and LCD by the government to encourage the use of multimedia. So, refers back to objective, which is to become more advanced in technology. So the teacher are prepared very well in this case. They were also given financial incentive, which is about 5% of their basic pay every month. This is to give them motivation to use English during teaching. What makes the training for MST interesting is that they were provided critical friends. Critical friends is someone who is proficient in English. There are those who can help the teachers to solve problem related to language use. So basically, if the teacher have issue on the terms that is suitable to use when teaching science and mathematics in English, they will refer to these critical friends. But according to Tan and Lan 2008, they stated that critical friends are not that functional because teachers are too busy to refer to them. So to conclude, for the implementations of PPSMI, we can see that the government has provided a comprehensive material and preparation for the implementations of PPSMI, whether it is in terms of budget, material, or training, down to the incentive to motivate students and teachers to cooperate with the executions of the policy. Despite all that, without proper research and reference from the expert, the plan somehow fell through. From this, we can learn that it is important to seek those who are knowledgeable in the area to avoid any missteps in the future. However, I love to mention this quote from John Dewey. Failure is instructive. The person who really thinks learns quite as much from his failure as from his successes.
Okay, so now we proceed to the impact on PPSMI. Since the country's education policy was launched, there's many issues came into view from the various parties, including politicians, academicians, and also teachers, parents, and also students that agreeing and some of them opposing on the implementation of PPSMI. So now we go to the implementation problems and issues arise. The problems arise when there is incompetent English proficiency teachers. As a teachers, they must be mentally and physically prepared to teach the students the knowledge in the easiest form to understand, especially when English is used to teach mathematics and science subject. So the key roles for the teachers is to deliver the content, to translate the content into a form of information that the students can understand through a series of appropriate learning activities. But science and mathematics teachers with an excellence command of English is only 25%. There are only a small proportion of teachers that use 100% totally English language when teaching their children. Thus, the process of teaching and learning becomes inefficient. Okay, now we move to the next issues, which is difficulty in preparing the dual language exam papers and even lack of motivation among teachers themselves. Okay, next, the teachers need to be equipped with all the skills to ensure the effectiveness of teaching. The skills involved with the pattern and methods of delivery, voice intonations, language and terminology used which are appropriate and easily understood by the students. A study found that students at the Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia are more inclined to study mathematics and science in Malay language because they felt that the process of teaching and learning mathematics and science courses will become more effective if they are conducted 100% in Malay language, and they also believe that learning mathematics and English courses in English will become less effective. The achievement of UPSR, PMR and also SPM for both rural and urban areas with Malay language as a medium of instructions is much higher compared to English language. The discrepancies in the achievement of mathematics and science subject for both rural and urban students were significantly different after the implementation of PPSMI. Okay, now we look into the performance of science subject in UPSR 2009. Okay, there's a decrease from 85.1% to 82.5% for urban schools and from 83.2% to 79.7% for rural schools. Meanwhile, for mathematics, the achievement of urban students dropped from 84.8% to 80.9%. Last but not least, for rural students, dropped from 80.9% to 77.0%. Okay, but then there is only for UPSR 2009, but this indicates that students able to comprehend in teaching and learning in their Malay language better than English, right? The students can easily grasp the lesson when we teach using their mother tongue. Okay, now look at the perceptions of PPSMI from students, teachers and parents' point of views. Now we go to the students' perceptions first. The number one is students perceive that they were not ready to learn mathematics and science in English language. And they also disagreed that mathematics will become easier when they learn in English. Okay, for the teachers' perceptions, teachers have a low perceptions on teaching mathematics in English. This is because they persist that limited English proficiency is one of the reasons why the students is not able to understand and cannot follow mathematics lesson. As a result, teachers needs to explain in Bahasa Melayu because mathematics is easier to be taught in Bahasa Melayu. For parents' perceptions, they are welcoming the PPSMI. In welcoming the move, they express hope the policy would not be a short-term one and not end up being scrapped if the country sees a change in administration or when a new education minister comes on board. Other than that, the government's decision to revert to the teaching and learning of mathematics and science in English PPSMI policy has earned praise from parents who said it will be better for their children for the future. They supported to use English English would ease the children's transition from primary and secondary school to tertiary level and later for their working life. Okay, now we look into the media coverage on contemporary education issues in Malaysia. The study from the researchers examined how the Malay and Chinese language newspapers portray the issues of teaching and learning science and mathematics in English. Comparison was made between the two different language in newspapers, particularly in terms of rally against of PPSMI policy and the upcoming announcement of the MBMMBI. What is MBMMBI? It is upholding the Malay language, strengthening command of English, or in Bahasa Melayu, it's known as martabatkan Bahasa Melayu, memperkukuhkan Bahasa Inggeris. The debate of PPSMI goes one of the hottest debates in Malaysia ever since its announcement in 2002. Even thought the reversal was made public in 2009 and replaced with a favorable policy, which is MBMMBI. But the issues of improving English proficiency continues to prey on the people's mind. The worries of the people, especially Malay and Chinese communities, are well reflected in their ethnic newspapers. Okay, we go to the next point. Tong Chiao Song and Gerakan memengsuhkan PPSMI JMP over the year. They perceive the move will disturb the younger generation in learning process of the two subjects, mathematics and science, and more importantly, it will affect the opportunity to pick up their mother's tongue. But the struggle were ignored and unheard until 2009 general election.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Nurul Ameera Atika Binti Zulkifli. Okay, now we move on to why PPSMI was abolished. And I'm pretty sure that most of us did not agree with that abolishment, since we ourselves learn science and mathematics in English since we were primary school until now. And did you guys ever wonder why these policies was abolished? And I'm sure that most of you guys had some troubles and difficulties during your practicals to translate the science and mathematics terms from Bahasa Malaysia to English. For our own understanding, since some of you guys need to teach the students in Bahasa Malaysia, right? Okay, so now we answer your question, why PPSMI policies was abolished. Okay, the first reason why PPSMI was abolished is to be said that it hindered the student ability. There was a study made by a professor from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, which is UKM, state that PPSMI hampered students' ability to understand science and mathematics concept, and this resulting in poor performance in subject. Then the second reason is the difficulties of the students to learn science and mathematics in English. There was a study made by a group of students from University Perguruan Sultan Idris, which is UPSI. They revealed that 70% from the students found that it is difficult for them to learn science and mathematics in English. And the third reason is the students have a poor command in English. There are some students from the rural area who fail both subjects, which is science and mathematics, due to their poor command in English. This is because most of them use Bahasa Malaysia when talking at home, and there are lack of exposing with English. Actually, these 3 points quite similar to each other. Most of the students fell victim in learning math and science in English, as they need to struggle to understand the concept that they have to learn. Okay, the last reason is the teacher lack mastering in English. As Shafiqah said just now, some of teachers have low perception in teaching science and mathematics in English. As they have this problem, they might have the problem in delivering and explaining the information for the student. So as teacher, they must be physically and mentally prepared to deliver the knowledge to the student to be in the easiest way to be understood by the student, especially when the English is used in teaching science and mathematics. Actually, the roles of the teachers and the student are mutually completing each other. So the main point is I want to say that the key role of the teacher is to translate the content into a form of information that the student can be easily understand through a series of appropriate learning activities. And now let's move on to the effect of the PPSMI abolishment. So, the first one is the lack of the graduate to speak well in English. There is a major concern among the high government officials and employers on the lack of ability of the graduate to speak well in English. This problem is also said to be contributing factor to the unemployment. The concern arises when it is seen that the graduates are unable to speak well and proper in English. Then, the second effect is stated in Izham Fairuz's articles. In his article, he stated that the reduction standard of the student from the public institution of high education, which is IPEA, has also been correlated to their weakness in mastering English. Okay, the third effect will be affected on the government itself. The government has loses a lot of money after the abolishment of the PPSMI. This is because the money allocated for this program is significantly large. When the PPSMI was abolished, all the educational related books such as textbook, reference books need to be translated back from English to Bahasa Malaysia. Okay, the last one is the competitiveness productivity in the future become more harder. All the effort to produce a competitive next generation in this era show that the awareness in learning English is the main foundation in the educational system. It is crystal clear that the Malaysian students' command of English has been dropped dramatically since, if I'm not mistaken, since year 1970. So, some have been jobless for a considerable period of the time. This circumstance is meant to portray the importance of the English language that should not be taken lightly. So, that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Syakirah Binti and I am going to continue on the advantages and disadvantages of PPSMI. The first advantage of PPSMI is, of course, is the reason why PPSMI was created or was introduced in the first place is to improve the students' English proficiency. It is well said that using English in science and mathematics in some way helped to improve the student capacity of English language, as it opened the new opportunity for the students to learn English more easily or better. This is because back in our school, I think everyone has experienced this. English subject was taught only for a few hours in a week. Maybe like 2 or 3 time periods in 1 week. For example, like, I think you guys remember the timetable, the schedule. Only like maybe, for example, like Monday and Thursday we have English class, and then the other is the other subjects. And this is obviously not enough or not adequate for students to master English, especially if the student is not very good in English or never speak English in their homes. So if student was taught science and mathematics in English, at least students can be familiar with English language and at the same time can build up their proficiency in the language rather than just depend only or solely on the English language class. Without even students realize they might have been taught a new English word. So that word is actually help us to build our English proficiency. I don't know if you realize or not. So if PPSMI is abolished, then the children will be restricted to explore the English language within a week or only 1 week. So this is actually one of the benefits in learning and mastering the English language. And if the student can enhance their quality of English proficiency, it will be eventually increasing our national prestige in the global educations. The second advantage of PPSMI is, as an international language, the mastery in English language will allow an easy access to information. There is no doubt, we are all aware that English language is the language that has been spoken internationally, and the mastery in this language will allow easy access to information, especially in the field of science and mathematics. What is more important is that we are living in a world where information is documented and written in English for most of the times, and even the scientists from all around the world, not just Malaysia, especially in the Westerns, constantly seek effective solutions for some issues through proper research, and the findings of this research is shared in English, well, most of the times. And if you want to search some things on the internet, it will be easier for you to search in English because it will show how much more result than the other language. For example, you can take your phone right now and try to search, for example, like kerusi. Of course, there will be less results. Rather than if you search chairs, there will be like millions of results. That is one of the examples. So if the students were already familiar with English, being taught in, especially in science and mathematics, then there will be less problem in accessing the information globally, especially if the students want to do research about science and mathematics. Finally, the third advantages of PPSMI is it will give benefit for the students who wish to further their study abroad or at the tertiary level or at the university. Having a good command in English, students are able to transfer the information that they have learned with the expertise in that language. And this benefit will expose students to the competency to compete in the era of globalization or the modernization. The use of English in science and mathematics subject, if judged from the positive outlook, can help students who wish to further their study abroad. And because even at the international level, English is used as a medium of communication with the other people. So according to a research, many Malaysian students, including the top scorers in public examinations or the SPM, experience difficulties in coping with tertiary studies due to their low-level English competency or English proficiency. This is because most learning materials are written in English, and it is not surprising if they are not able to comprehend the lesson studies. Recently, many excellent students in Terengganu have quite a turbulent times attaining the required band in the Malaysian English test or MUET prior to being accepted as a students at the local university, because almost all university in the whole country use English as their medium of learning. So these are some of the advantages of PPSMI, and considering this topic, the use of English has proven to be of a great value, but still many people are being skeptical about it, about its suitability to teach science and mathematics in the context of Malaysian education system, which arise some negative judgment or disadvantage from a lot of people, especially in our society. So the first disadvantages of the reintroduction of PPSMI is the lack of linguistic proficiency in English among teachers. So this is a very hot topic or very crucial topic, especially for us as a future teacher. So before the PPSMI was introduced, most teachers of this technical subject, including science and mathematics, have been trained under the Dasar Bahasa Kebangsaan, which means that the teachers were all familiar with all the Malay terms as well as explaining science and mathematics in Malay. However, when the PPSMI was established, all these teachers are required to teach English, which is something that they have never trained for, and within a short time of period. So of course, this situation will create a discomfort and chaotic for the teachers. Teachers who teach these two technical subjects will need to master the language, both oral and written. But not everyone can completely and perfectly master a new whole language and be familiar with all the scientific and mathematics terms in a short time of period. Thus, it is not surprised that some of the teachers that teach this subject will having a weak English command. The problem of teachers having a weak English command is that it can cause the teaching and learning process of the teaching of learning science and mathematics become more complicated and eventually will affect the students' learning process. Just imagine if the teachers having a weak English command, they will likely to speak awkwardly. And apparently the student will also feel awkwardly because and this will be a hard situation for the students to grasp and understand what the teacher is trying to teach or trying to explain. So by hook or by crook, teachers have to take the initiative to master the language in order for them to teach the subject. So if necessary, they have to take English tuition class in order to enhance their English efficiency, because the quality of the teachers that we have today is far more crucial, far more important than the choice of using English or Malay as a medium of instructions. Because of these situations, the teachers are very under pressure, and some of them feel dissatisfied with their own teaching process. The students respect the teachers of his or her teaching skills, personal qualities, knowledge, and professionalism. Rather than just making shortcut and introduce English for a difficult technical subject, things like better teaching methods, more experienced or qualified teachers should be addressed first. If the teachers themselves do not understand the information and then try to convey it during the learning process, how will they expect the students to comprehend or to understand the subject? And as a result, students will easily feel bored and have less respect to the teachers. Like, oh my god, the teacher's not even good at English. I don't really understand what she's saying. I don't really like her. I like the other teachers. That teachers have a better English. Now, these sentiments from the students is what we should take consideration of. For the second disadvantages, the implementation of PPSMI can create a big gap between rural students and the urban students who English is their first language most of the time. As a Malaysian, we are well aware that most of the people who live in the urban area mostly can speak pretty well in English. And today we can see that English has become their first language, and even the language they used to speak at home, while in the other area, Malay is pretty much their main language. In other words, people in urban area have better proficiency in English than who live in the rural area, and this situation can cause the rural students to face difficulties to learn mathematics and science for the early stage of PPSMI. In many regions of Malaysia, English is considered as a foreign language by the students. Some students who live in area like Malaysian Borneo, Sabah and Sarawak, states with dialects such as Kelantan, Terengganu, Kedah and Perlis, they have their own native language or their own dialect, and their dialect is quite thick. Thus, English will certainly become their third language rather than their second language. The same phenomenon also happened to the Chinese and Indian people or the other ethnic students. These circumstances otherwise give a big or huge gap between the rural students and the urban student whose English is their first language. Fundamentally, students who speak English as their second or third language, PPSMI give a big challenge for them as they are just about to figure out the English language. Next, the third disadvantages of PPSMI is personally happened to myself, and I believe some of you might experience this as well, which is a slow grasp and having difficulty in understanding by students who do not fluent in English. English is the second language while Malay is the first language being spoken in Malaysia. And there is no doubt that Malay language is the most understandable language in Malaysia. By this logic, the people who receive certain information in the language that they are most fluent in will be having no problem in understanding that information. The language that I speak in my house is Malay, and also the language that I speak outside of the house. But when I came to school, despite went into the English class, when I started to learn science and mathematics, because of the English language, it made me hard to understand, thus making me very slow to process the information by my teachers compared to the other students who are fluent in English. And the last but not least is the sudden change of abolishments and the reintroduction create a problem in teaching process. Since the policy was introduced in 2003 until the decision to abolish it in 2012, these issues often gets complaints from various parties of people that demanded PPSMI to be abolished immediately. Having the PPSMI abolished, many parties concerned that it will affect the education system, teachers and students had to quickly adapt to a new policy. Not only this will affect the whole system, but it will also leave the teachers and the students feel like no less than a lab rat or like experimental people. These people are not the government experimental material instruments. They are human beings. In consequences, students who used to learn science and mathematics in English had to be mentally and cognitively prepared for the change in the medium of instruction. At the same time, they might get confused and consequently their academic performance might be adversely affected. This is due to the fact that reverting to the national language resulted in students failing to perform globally. The late Chief Minister of Sarawak, Tan Sri Adnan Satim, even condemned such move when he said that we don't want a situation where this year we use English language and the next year we go back to the Malay language. There's need to be a consistency so that it will not confuse the students and the parent as well. Not just that, this changing again situation will absolutely cost a lot of money. For example, the students learning materials, but especially textbook, if the language or the system change, the textbook will also change as well. And I am not denying that this situation happens because they are changing of government. But the government today really should take this matter seriously and try to consider every parties or every people expect, as well as having a consistent decision so that it will affect the students' performance. So everyone has their own opinion on these issues, and I think maybe we should listen to a person that actually have a credential towards speaking about this matter. While I was searching about this issue, there is one person that caught my attention, and I think his suggestion is pretty good suggestions in order to overcome this issue of PPSMI. And he is Dr. Jaafar Jantan. So his suggestion is PPSMI should be continued but with some changes. Prior to learning science and mathematics in English language, Dr. Jaafar Jantan, who is the Vice Chair of Asian Physics Education ASPEN, UNESCO, at the Persidangan Meja Bulat 4 PPSMI in Putrajaya on 21st October 2008, suggested that the learning of science and mathematics must be done in Malay in the first 4 years of the student's primary education first, because at the early stage, he or she could learn numeracy and science skill better in his or her first language. Furthermore, the UNESCO study reported that the students could learn lessons best in their mother's tongue in the primary stage of schooling. I think this is a pretty good suggestion in considering the advantages and the disadvantages that I explained earlier. So in conclusion, PPSMI has its own good and bad. Many parties insist to revert PPSMI and use Malay language as a medium of instruction in science and mathematics. But many parties are not, and saying that PPSMI is better. Based on research by Yunus and Shukri 2017, even most of the science and mathematics training teachers hold different perception towards the implementation of the PPSMI. But what we can all agree is that there is a pressing need to improve the quality of English among students. So currently, the education system in Malaysia practices DLP, Dual Language Program, whereby it is optional for not only for the school but also for parents and students of the choice to learn STEM subject in English or Malay. The emergence of the DLP will be a platform to satisfy both Malay and English advocates in the teachings and learning of mathematics and science, and this is supported by DASA MBI, memartabatkan bahasa Malaysia, memperkukuhkan bahasa Inggeris. Doesn't this sound fair enough? Should we continue to implement DLP or reintroduce PPSMI back? So we want to hear your opinions, and that's all from me. Thank you very much.